What's going on, guys? It's Zaino back here with another video, and today is going to be a long one. We're doing all 150 Jokers in a tier list. To expedite this process, I have what the Jokers do in the top right via the BalatroFandom.com wiki. Shout out to them for doing a great job of summarizing all the information. So I'm not going to explain in detail every single Joker. I'm going to scroll on that as I rank these. I'm going to try and spend only 10 to 20 seconds on each Joker because even doing so, it's going to be 50 minutes to an hour long. And enough rambling. Let's jump into this one. So right away, we have the Joker. First one, it's going in the bad tier. You get +4 molt. It's helpful for maybe the first blind. It's not a great Joker card. I'm not a big fan. And it's not awful, but I hate when it comes up. Next, we have all 4 of the different varieties of club joker or suit jokers that give you 4 molt per suit, and these are all going in the above average. These can really jumpstart your run. They can help your economy out early. I think they're very solid jokers, and they give you good base molt to then times later for your flush builds, or even, in a longer form game, getting that 20 molt from having 5 of the same suit is not bad, especially when you're about to times it by a bunch of different ones. So moving down, we have the Jolly Joker. I put this in the below average tier. You only get +8 molt for having a pair. It could be arguable it's C tier, but it's rarely used. It could be used a little bit in the early game. Same thing goes for Zany. Now, the Mad Joker is where I actually put him in average. Yes, 4 of a kind's a little bit harder to have, but the fact that you get 20 base molt makes it a little bit more viable longer into the game. Crazy Joker, he's going in below average. I was thinking bad tier, but below average just because straight builds are so hard to play. And then Droll Joker, that +10 molt for a flush puts it in the average tier. In my opinion, flush builds are very viable. Again, that 10 molt doesn't hurt early in the game. I like it. Next, we're on to kind of the chip Jokers for the different pairs and whatnot. We have Slide Joker with 50 chips. I'll put him in average. The same goes for Wily Joker, and the same goes for Clever Joker. All these chip Jokers for pairs and whatnot, they're solid. They're nothing incredible, but they definitely are useful. Next, Devious Joker. Again, straight builds are hard to play. I don't think it's giving you enough at 100 chips. And then Crafty Joker giving you 80 chips for a flush. Same thing. I'm going to put it in average. Again, I have a little bit of a hate against straight builds just because I think they're so hard to do, maybe unless you're on a abandoned deck. So a lot of those Jokers are going to end up a little bit farther down below on the tier list. Half Joker. I used to think he was bad. Then I was like, he's below average. And now I actually think Half Joker's average tier. Antes 1 through 3 can be very solid, help your run going. You only have to play 3 cards. It's also kind of viable when you're going for a pair or high card build, which I'm starting to do a little bit more of as we reach higher stakes. So not so against the Half Joker anymore. Stencil Joker. This is one of the few Jokers that gives X molt that doesn't really scale well, but can be solid early game. So I actually put in above average. If you can get Stencil in the first couple antes, he can carry you for a little bit, especially in combination with one of these suit-oriented Jokers. So, I like it. If you have a few negative Jokers, it can really pop off. For the end game, you're probably going to get rid of him, and that's why he's not good or very good, but it's really solid in the beginning. Four Fingers, absolutely. I was going to put above average. I may put into good. I don't love utility Jokers. I think, honestly, utility Jokers, like Four Fingers, are hard to play around because they're not really adding anything. But the fact Four Fingers allows you to play straight flushes so easily and so often, in my opinion, puts it in the good tier. It makes a card like Seance respectable and being able, you can actually use it. Basically, without Four Fingers, it's almost impossible to play a straight flush build unless you have a mass amount of tarot cards and you change your deck quite a bit. But Four Fingers, it really simplifies everything. You can play a lot around it, so I'll put it in the good tier. Mime is going to be our first of very good. Mime is one of those Jokers that is just incredible. The fact that it's re-triggering every card in your hand allows you to play steel and gold builds very effectively. It makes Baron unbelievably good. Very, very good Joker. The credit card. I think this is a good tier. It allows you, if you don't have an economy going and this pops in the shop, you can actually start your run. It can be a little bit hard to dig yourself out of. I wouldn't put it in very good, but it's a solid joker that is quite useful. Next we have Ceremonial Dagger. This is going to go in, I'm going to put it in below average. I think additional mult jokers in general aren't the greatest, and the fact that you have to scale it so slowly, in my opinion, and the only time you can scale it fastly, outside of having an egg joker, which is a great combo, is getting rid of good jokers. You know, negative jokers or hollow jokers, foil jokers, and you don't want to do that. So Ceremonial Dagger has its place. You can use it, but I would definitely put it in the below average tier. Next, we have Banner. This is going to go in average. I end up using it quite a bit, but it's hard to play around not being able to use your discards, especially as you scale and you get a little bit higher up in the stakes. It's just not the easiest thing to play around. Mystic Joker. Now this is the polar opposite of Banner. I'm actually going to put in below average. It adds 15 mult, but only when you have 0 discards. This is also something that's not very easy to play around. I end up with it quite a bit just to get 15 mult early, but you don't want to have to discard everything to get that 15 mult in most cases. And as I get to higher stakes, the less I want Mystic Joker. It's more of, oh, it popped in the shop, I have to take it type of thing. Again, I wouldn't put it in bad, but I'd put it below average. Marble Joker, adding a stone card to the deck when the blind is selected. Any joker that adds cards to your deck, in my opinion, is at least above average because it can scale with hologram and a few other jokers so well. I'm going to put it above average. Obviously, it's specific use cases, such as a high card build, that it really comes in clutch, but you're adding a card to your deck. Yes, I know it's stone. It's not the greatest card in the deck, and we'll see with other jokers later if they pass up this one when it comes to adding cards, but it's still adding a card to your deck, and I think that can be so easily molded and played around. It's a fantastic card. Loyalty card, maybe my first controversial opinion, it's a bad joker. The fact that it's uncommon and takes up an uncommon slot, the only thing beneficial about that is the fact that it will times 1.5 with baseball card joker. But something that you can only use every 6 hands played is so hyper specific to builds where you have lots of hands or you have to time things perfectly. And then, in my opinion, if you're going to only allow me to trigger this card once every 6 hands, it should be times 10 mult, not times 4 mult. Times 4 is really good, but it's not going to be the end all be all, and you're wasting a whole joker spot on something that's used once every 6 hands. I just don't like playing around it. 8-Ball Joker, our first awful tier joker, in my opinion. Creating a planet card when you have to play 2 8s seems insane. Even if you had an 8-card build for some reason, I'm only getting 1 planet card every 2 8s. I don't know. I don't think it's that fantastic. I could see it scaling okay with Constellation, which gets X-Mult every time you play a planet card, but planet cards in general are a little underpowered in my opinion. It goes into the awful tier, especially since 8 cards are the rank of 8 is not the easiest number to play around in the deck with the other jokers. Misprint, above average. Very, very good early round joker, and honestly can scale okay. Obviously, it can hurt you at times. At other times, it's giving you plus 24 mult for cheap and can be very, very good. Dusk is going in the good tier. It's close to the very good tier. Anything that re-triggers your cards is very, very good. Dusk only does so on the final round, so I'm going to have to put it in the good tier, but it's one of the better jokers in the game. It's something that you could absolutely go for high scores with. It can absolutely help your runs. It's just a really good joker that I honestly find myself taking a little bit more when I'm going for high scores versus just trying to win a run. But if you have those glass cards, it's something that I end up picking up just about every time. We have Raised Fist in the next one. This one's going to be in, I'm going to say below average, not bad, because if you can play around it in the early game and, get your 7s to higher numbers out so it pluses 14 or more mult, it can be okay. So it's not technically bad, but it's a little hard to play around for something that's not really adding that much, in my opinion. Chaos the Clown, I originally was going to put him below average, then I was like, maybe average. I'm actually putting it above average, and the reason I'm doing so is Oftentimes you can buy Chaos the Clown, reroll once, and then replace it. It gives you that free reroll. It pays for itself by paying for that reroll. That it's actually kind of a okay card to show up in the shop. It's not always perfect, but I don't mind it. If you can get a negative version of that Joker, it's actually one of the better negative Jokers in the game. Fibonacci, maybe the only, we'll see, but one of the only very good S tier Jokers of additional moat, in my opinion. The fact that you're getting +8 instead of +4, and on numbers that can scale very, very well with other Jokers such as aces, 3s, and 5s. Fantastic. It's one of the best cards in the game. If you get this early, your run is off and going, and I've lost, but it's hard to lose when you get a good early Fibonacci. Next is Steel Joker. The 0.25 molt for each steel card in your deck is going in the very good tier. Stuff that multiplies molt right away is going to be good, and then stuff that is so easily scalable, like the Steel Joker, where I can just print chariots or print death cards or get cryptids to cryptid my steel cards, it works out very well. And you can get this very high very quickly, and it's usually working in tandem with your build where you have steel cards which are all multiplying by 1.5, and then this is multiplying by 5, 6, 7 towards the end game. It's a very, very good Joker for high scores. It's a very good Joker, to be honest, even for just finishing harder stake runs. Scary Face Joker, giving you chips per face card is, it's solid. Nothing incredible. I'm going to put it in the above average because it's pretty easy to play face card builds, and Balatro face card is a nice one to have there. Abstract Joker, pretty average. Basically the most you're normally going to get for it is +15, but +15 volt is not bad for those, antes 1 through 4, and then you replace it pretty easily. Next is Delayed Gratification, and maybe I just haven't played this card correctly, but I'm putting it in the F awful tier. You're earning $2 per discard if no discards are used by the end of the round. Very specific. I obviously can see use for this with the Green Joker, but how often, if you're playing kind of a high card build or a build where you play every single hand, are you able to use Gratification successfully and waste a Joker spot on it? I don't think there's many uses for it. I do not like it. So far I've not seen the successful play with it in my games or the creators I watch, but I would love to be proven wrong, and that's why we're doing this tier list. You guys comment down below what you think. Next we have Hack. This is going in the double S tier. It's a card that re-triggers every single time for 2, 3, 4s, and 5s. That means it doesn't need to be the last hand. It doesn't need to be in your hand. It can be cards that are played 2, 3, 4s, and 5s every single time. It's fantastic. It allows for some crazy high scores. Works very well with Fibonacci for your 3s, 5s, and 2s. One of the best cards in the game. Along those lines, Pareidolia. Yes, there are some boss blinds that absolutely crush you with Pareidolia, but it is still a very good card because of how many Jokers buff face cards like Scary Face, and Pareidolia allows that to affect every single card. It is a card that you could use for legitimately 2 to 3 rounds, and your economy went from in the trash to you have $150 you don't know what to do with, and you can get rid of it due to, again, the other Jokers it works so well with. Gross Michelle, another very good card, +15 molt, just straight up fantastic for cheap. And then when it goes extinct, you're able to get Cavendish. I'm grabbing this every single time. Cavendish is by far the best common Joker there is. Obviously, you have to have Gross Michelle go extinct first to be able to get in the shop, but still is a very, very, very good Joker. Even Steven is going in the above average tier. It works very similarly to the suit Jokers, adding 4 molt for all your even cards, but there's only a few in your deck in 2, 4, 6, and 8. Works better with the abandoned deck, but overall, in my opinion, a pretty solid Joker. Odd Todd is in the good tier, getting 30 chips for every odd card, which includes aces, is fantastic. Again, one of my favorite combos is Odd Todd, Fibonacci, and Hack, and you play 3 and 5s all day. You get your chips up, you get the mult up. It's fantastic. Scholar is another A-tier Joker. Aces are one of the other cards that is really easy to play around. Just speaking of Odd Todd, Fibonacci, and Scholar really helps out your aces. The fact that you get +4 molt and 20 chips is pretty incredible, and you mix out the Odd Todd, each one is giving you 50 chips. There's a reason ace card builds are somewhat easy to play in this game. Business card, I'm going to put this in average. It's a solid economy card, especially if you're playing a face card build or you get pareidolia, like we said earlier, the fact that you can get a 1-2 chance at $2. The roll 6s every time. I can't remember the name of Joker, but the Joker that increases your chances obviously goes really well with business card. But at the end of the day, it is just an economy Joker, and I think there's better economy Jokers in the game. Supernova, as the number of times a poker hand has been played to mult, this is in the awful tier. The only way I think this is effective is in pair or high card builds, maybe a flush build, but even then, by the time it's useful and you've played it 40 times and it's giving you plus 40 mult, you want X mult Jokers. You don't want additive Jokers. So any Joker that is reliant on late game additive mult, I don't think is good. If it takes you too long for it to be worth it, it's just not going to be good, because by then you want to be timesing your mult. You don't want to be plussing it. And the same thing goes for Ride the Bus, but this goes in below average just because it's a little bit easier to get going, especially, again, playing abandoned deck. Every single hand doesn't have a face card, so there's more of a use for it. Space Joker is going in the bad tier, in my opinion. I think it needs a buff to 1 in 3 chance of upgrading the level of every played poker hand. And the big thing here is upgrading the level of your poker hand is solid. It's not the end all be all. It's not that great to get, the equivalent of a planet card every 4 times I play that certain hand. I mean, honestly, I'm going to stick by my guns. I'm playing it in the awful tier. I may get some controversy for that, but I just don't think it's a good Joker. Egg Joker, like we said, it can work very well with Ceremonial Dagger. It can work very well with Swashbuckler, or it could work very well just helping your economy get going. It's a good tier Joker. It's just a solid one that can build money and can work and actually make Ceremonial Dagger viable. It can make Swashbuckler actually viable. So I really like Egg Joker for those reasons. Burglar. I haven't found too many uses where I found Burglar fantastic, but I don't think it's a bad card per se, especially if you are running a build where you don't have that many discards. Getting those +3 hands can be very useful. So all in all, I think it's pretty mid-tier, maybe on the borderline of below average. I mean, I'll throw it in below average. I don't think it's quite average tier, but it's okay. Blackboard, this is very good Joker. I would say borderline S tier. The fact that you're getting ×3 if you hold spades and clubs in your hand, it's actually relatively easy to play around, even if your deck is half and half. And the reason for that is you have 8 cards in your hand, let's say. Well, if you're going to play a flush of hearts, then the only thing you need is the other 3 cards not to be diamonds or hearts. It's not that hard to play around because you just play your hearts and diamonds when you're given them, and then what's remaining in your hand is the spades and clubs. So it's either that or you make your whole deck spades and clubs, but it's relatively easy to play around to get ×3 mult. It's pretty fantastic. Runner, borderline bad tier. I'm going to put in below average tier. Like I mentioned, straight decks are just not easy to play around. It scales a little slow in my opinion. I'm thinking maybe it should be +15 chips per played straight, but all in all, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's really not that viable. Ice Cream, this is an above average Joker. Again, very good in the early game, and even can be pretty solid in the mid game if you just need a spike in your chips for a few hands. This also goes very well if you're doing a lot of skips, because if you're doing a lot of skips and you're trying to one-shot the boss, your ice cream isn't going to melt very fast, and you're going to be able to use those 100, 95, then 90, then 85 chips. DNA, like I said, cards that allow you to make other cards are fantastic, and then one that allows you to choose what exact card to make a copy of is incredible. One of the best Jokers in the game, without a doubt. I grab this every single time, maybe even times I shouldn't be, because it's just too good to pass up, in my opinion. Splash Joker, being able to have every card that you play, not just scoring cards, basically score, is solid, but it's below average because it's a utility that's not really needed in Balatro. Usually if you're at that point in your run that it's kind of like, oh, I need to play this 8 even though it's not part of my, let's say, hand, or I need this 8 to score, you're not in a good spot, honestly, if Splash is still in your hand. So I haven't been able to use it that successfully. I've used it somewhat in high card builds, but even then it's meh. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but I don't know. I just find it really hard to play around, and I don't see its usefulness coming through. I think it's a good Joker to have in the game, but it is definitely below average. Same thing with Blue Joker. Actually, I'm going to put Blue Joker in average. If I'm going to put Ice Cream above average, I think Blue Joker is just a tier below whatever Ice Cream is in terms of being able to add chips. I guess if you have a really, really bloated deck for some reason, Blue Joker could be maybe even above average, but I haven't been able to see that yet. 6 cents is going in the bad tier. Now, I love making spectral cards. You guys know how I feel about spectral cards. They're one of the best. They're the best consumable cards in the game. I love using them. However, it's so hyper specific and you can only make one. I think if you remove the restriction of if first hand played of the round is a single 6. How about if any hand played is a single 6, give me a spectral card. You're destroying my 6s. I'm not even going to have that many in my deck. I understand this would allow you to make a little bit of a printer with DNA and 6s, but still, let it. It's a rare Joker. I think what gets me here is the fact that you use a rare tag, you see a rare Joker pop up, and when it's 6 cents, you're hitting your head against the wall. You're like, it could have been DNA. And you got 6 cents. I mean, the difference between these two cards is night and day in terms of how helpfulness it is to your run, how helpful it is to get a high score. Constellation is going to go in the above average. It's a little hard to scale because you're only getting 0.1 per planet card played. But again, it's something that helps with X Molt. Anything with X Molt is solid in this game and is usually worth picking up if you don't have one. So I'm going to put it in the above average. Hiker. I actually think this is one of the chip Jokers that is pretty useful. If you can get it early on the run and you have a dedicated set of cards that you're looking for and playing, it can be fantastic. If you use it on a thin deck, it can be fantastic. I wouldn't quite say it's good, but it definitely is above average, and I find myself getting it. And then, sometimes even selling it. You add a few extra chips to some of your cards. It did its job, and then you sell it. Chips are quite undervalued, I think, when you get to higher stakes because, it's all about the X Molt. You're getting the billions and billions of Molt. Well, to balance that out, unless you're playing the Plasma deck, you need to get some chips, and this simply will help you out with that. Faceless Joker, I'm going to put in average. Again, something that really works well with Pareidolia and can help your economy with Pareidolia, but on its own, it's pretty mid. The fact that it's 3 cards or more is somewhat hard to do, and it should be hard to do because it gives you $5. Green Joker, also average. I don't find myself playing around a deck where I basically don't discard very often, and when you do, I think there's better cards than Green Joker to go after. In fact, I'm going to put it in below average. It's just not that useful. That's all there is to it. Again, it's similar to what I was saying before. If I'm playing a high card deck where I'm playing every single hand, I'm not needing to discard. There's other Jokers I want that aren't additive Molt Jokers like Green Joker. Superposition. If there was something below F tier, it would be here. It's just not useful. Straights are hard enough to play around. Then you're only getting something when you play an ace straight. And then the fact that it's creating a tarot card, maybe if it created a spectral card, but it's a tarot card. Tarot cards are useful. They're not that useful. Vagabond is a much more realistic way of getting many tarot cards. I don't ever use Superposition. To-do list, below average. It can help your economy in the early game, but it's pretty annoying because in Balatro, you need to focus on, in my opinion, a handful of hands that are kind of your win condition. And what are the chances that to-do list gives you one of those? You can sometimes play around it for a few rounds, but you eventually have to sell it. And again, there's much better economy Jokers in the game. Cavendish, double S tier, it's one of the best. It's a common Joker that gives you ×3 Molt. Again, yes, Gross Michelle needs to go extinct to get it first, but if it's available to you, you're buying it 100 times out of 100. It's just a fantastic Joker to have. And along those lines, Card Sharp is in the very good tier. Being able to play a hand twice and get ×3 Molt that second time is fantastic. Again, anything that allows you to focus on your hyper-specific group of hands that you're going after, in my opinion, is a good Joker, and Card Sharp is one of the best examples of that. Red Card Joker is in the awful list. You're having to spend money on packs to then skip them, to then add Molt. I think if we switch Red Card to maybe add 0.2 Molt timesing every time you skip, it could be viable. But right now, in its current state, I just don't see it's viable. Maybe if you get liquidation voucher in every pack is only $2, you could start building it up reasonably okay. But even then, I don't think additive mult jokers at scale are that good in the first place. I've said this many times in the video already, and this is one of the worst versions of that. Madness, I'm going to put it in below average. There's hyper-specific use cases for Madness that revolve around eternal jokers, which you get once you get to Black Stake difficulty, and Madness can be fantastic. In fact, I'll put in average. But until you hit Black Stake, Madness is legitimately useless. You can't use it. I mean, you could try, I guess, and play a one joker run, but it's really, really hard to play around. So until you get to that Black Stake difficulty, it's not viable. Once you get there, it can be really, really fun to play with. Square Joker. This is going in the bad tier list. The bad tier. Playing 4 cards is weird. It's like usually I want to play like under 3, like 4 half joker, or I'm playing my full hand. I don't want to have to play exactly 4 cards to only scale plus 4 chips each and every time. It's not easy to use. It's not great. And Seance, very similar reason as of why Sixth Sense is here. It's a rare joker that you're pissed when you see show up when you use your rare tag. Yes, Crane Spectral cards is great, but for Seance to pop off, I need 4 fingers. I probably needed to modify my deck quite a bit. And then I'm printing Spectral cards for what reason? I already had to use all my jokers. I already had to shift my deck so much for it to start popping off. Spectral cards, the whole point is to then modify the deck at that point. Well, my deck's already modified for Seance to even work. So I really don't like it. Moving on, Riff Raff, above average joker. It's creating 2 common jokers every single time. Fantastic early game joker. Has saved many of runs for me. I really, really enjoy. Vampire is another X-Molt joker. It would be in very good tier, except for the fact that it eats your glass. Glass cards are an easy way to, save a run, go for high scores, beat higher stakes. Glass can be a savior. And you can't use it. You legitimately cannot use it with Vampire. Now, there's still a ton of benefits to Vampire. I've seen it get to like times 5.6. You use this with Midas, which we're going to talk about soon, which creates gold cards. Or you use this with, the Marble Joker, which creates stone cards. You just feed it and feed it and feed it, and it gets to a very high multiplication number, and it's really good. But it's not quite S tier just due to the fact that it allows you to never play enhanced cards because it's always going to take the enhancement off. Shortcut, pretty solid joker, but it's a utility joker that's kind of hard to waste a spot around. I honestly much rather have 4 fingers than Shortcut, so it's going to go in the average C tier. And I've said enough, straight builds are just hard to play around. Hologram, double S tier, one of the best X-Molt jokers in the game. It is very easy to add cards. We've talked about plenty of jokers already that add cards. There's other ways to add cards like Spectral cards or the standard packs. Very easy to scale. Very, very good joker. X-Molt's very important. Use Hologram. That's all I'm going to say. Vagabond, very good tier. This is what Superposition wishes it was. Vagabond allows you to create a tarot card every single hand that you play as long as you have less than $3, which is pretty easy to do. Just spend all your money in the shop. Yes, it's hard to then get an economy really stable, but the fact that you're making 2 to 5 tarot cards every single round is incredible. And if you value those tarot cards at $3 per, this is in a way almost an economy joker too, getting you $15 worth of value every single round. It's insanely good. Baron is, the best double S tier. Well, A, because if you're into the really big meta of high scores, it is one of the jokers that you need for like an infinite super, super high score run. But in general, giving me times 1.5 mult for something that I'm not really having to mess with in Kings is just great. It allows me to put Kings in my hand. I can then put Steel on my Kings, which also gives it 1.5. Then you add a Red Seal, and now it's giving 1.5 4 times. It's a very, very viable joker, and the fact that it's all happening in your hand and doesn't need to be played, so you can play it, like, let's say, with a Vampire, is really, really good. I think Baron is one of the best jokers in the game. That's why it's double S tier. We moved on to Cloud9. Just a little too specific in my opinion. I put in below average. A big part of this is 9s are hard to play around. There's not much here. You know, we've gone over a lot of jokers so far that buffs 9s. I mean, we have Odd Todd, and that's almost it. So 9s are hard to play around. It is a very good advantage to get $1 per 9, so that's why it's just below average, and it's not terrible, but it's not fun to play around. Rocket is one of the few economy jokers that is going to be in the S tier. It scales stupidly well. If you're ever lucky enough to get a negative rocket, congratulations, you never have to worry about money the entire game, but it's so good that it's worth wasting a spot in your joker spots for, because you won't have to worry about money, especially if you get in the first few antes. But even after that, it can be pretty darn viable for the long run just because it scales so well. Obelisk is going in the very good tier. Not the easiest joker to play around, and it does kind of put, like, there's going to be an end to your run. There's going to be eventually a time that you ran out of hands to play and you're going to accidentally, or you're going to have to play something that is your most played hand and it no longer is good. But it's very, very helpful at higher stakes at helping your run go and just finishing it out. I wouldn't say it's the best high score joker, but it's very good for just finishing runs. Midas, another very good S tier joker, works very well with Pareidolia, but even if you don't have it, allowing your cards to become gold, the face cards to be gold, is great. You could either use it in the short term, just make all your face cards gold, you're good, play the rest of the game having those gold face cards, or use it in tandem with with Vampire. I'm actually going to put it in the good tier. I overrated a tad there. But you use it with Vampire, and you're just printing Molt for Vampire. These two work very well together. In general, it's a very, very good card. Next, we have Luchador, which you sell this card to disable the boss blind. It can save a run. I'm going to put it in the average tier, though, because it is a little bit expensive. It is uncommon, and it takes up a whole joker slot. You really have to have this magical thing of it popped up during a ante, which I really need it, and then I'm going to buy it and sell it, which is useful, so there's a use case for it. But other than that, you don't really want to buy it. Photograph Joker, I actually think is above average. It can help your early game. That ×2 Molt on the face card, you just put the face card last. It can actually help in the late game if you have an open joker spot, or if you get a negative version. It's really, a joker that has a little bit of utility to it. You early, mid, or late game, there's sometimes is a place for it. It's not the end all be all, but for common, I think it is very solid. Gift card, I'm going to put in the bad tier. Like, yes, adding sell value to all your jokers can be useful, maybe with Swashbuckler or, with Ceremonial Dagger, but you're wasting a joker spot to do that to your other jokers. You can't really afford that in this game, whether you're going for a high score or you're going just to finish a run at higher stakes or even playing normal stakes. It's rare to have usefulness out of it. Turtle Bean is absolutely in the good tier. Allowing your +5 hand size, mixed with Baron or some other things, can allow you to go after that super, super high score. But honestly, if you play your cards right and you skip to the boss blinds, it can allow you to assuredly beat that boss. And then if you already have what you need, you can then skip the blinds again. Just go straight to the next boss. Probably one-shot that. You could use it for a few rounds in a row if you play it correctly and skip. In general, it can save a run. It can allow you to get high scores. It's a very good joker. The only thing that makes it not very good or the best is obviously it has kind of a limit because it reduces by 1 each and every round. Erosion, I think, is average tier. Like, it's something that you can play around at any point in the game if you happen to have a thin deck and gives you that additive Molt. It's not really something that you have to work at for additive Molt like Ceremonial Dagger, so that's why it's not below average or bad, but I don't find myself picking it up very often, and again, at the end of the day, it is just additive Molt. Reserved Parking, average. Can help build your economy in the early game, could even build your economy in the mid game or late game if you really have a spot for it, so it's solid. Once again, another economy joker that works super well with Pareidolia, but on its own, it's meh. It's not the greatest thing on earth, but it's not bad. We then move on to mail-in rebate. I'm going to put this in below average. Yes, it helps your economy, but it's really kind of reliant on the RNG of what card it's going to choose and if you're able to discard that card. So not the end-all be-all. Can help your economy for a couple rounds and then you sell it, so there's a usefulness to it, but it's definitely, it's barely average if it is average, and I would not put it above average. To the Moon. I'm actually putting this in the bad tier, and the reason for this is if you're at the point where To the Moon is really working for you, you already have an economy going and you don't need it. You don't need to waste a Joker spot on it. I'm tempted to put it in the awful tier, but there's some slight use cases for it. Yeah, in general, To the Moon has one usefulness, and that's you getting your $400 to unlock one of the final Jokers in the game. Hallucination. This is another card I think is bad. When any booster pack is open, there's a 1 in 2 chance of opening a tarot card. Yes, if you're opening a ton of booster packs, it's nice to get a few extra tarot cards. Is it worth one of your Joker spots? No. Again, the only one that I think that creates tarot cards that's worth it is Vagabond, or adding some purple seals to cards. I'm not wasting a Joker spot on something that then requires me to open booster packs to then have a chance. There's so many things that need to go right here to then just get tarot cards that are random. And, not every tarot card is useful, and each run's also going to be different. Some runs, most tarot cards aren't going to be useful. Fortune Teller is going to go in average. It's an additive mult Joker. However, due to Vagabond and due to all these other Jokers that create tarot cards, there is times where you just have already played a bunch, and it's good just to add 55 mult to the front of your Joker list. So definitely an average card. It can have its usefulness. Juggler, add +1 to your hand size. This and Drunkard, which adds a discard, I think are both average. They're actually not the worst cards in the world. And if you have an open Joker slot, oftentimes it's like, oh, why not add 1 to my hand size? Why not add a discard for the next couple rounds? And then you can sell them off. They're okay in the early game. Usually early game you want to be adding molten chips instead of these two. I actually think it's really good for like antes 3 through 6, but they actually have a usefulness, and they're pretty cheap common Jokers, so I'm all for them. Stone Joker is going in the average tier. Now, I just talked about how chips are underutilized. Stone Joker really can only work in tandem with Marble, and then you can get tons and tons and tons of chips and go for a crazy high score, but it's so hyper specific on the fact that you've already used Marble for most of the game. Other than that, it's not going to be that useful, and adding chips early on is not that important. It's really to get that balance to go for a high score. So all in all, not a huge fan of Stone Joker. Golden Joker, good tier. One of the better economy Jokers in the game, right up there with Rocket. Now it doesn't scale, but it just gives you a flat +4 every round. Can absolutely help the early game economy. I think it's very, very useful. Lucky Cat, one of the only X-Mult Jokers that I will say is bad, because for it to work properly, you need the Dice Joker that increases odds for lucky cards. I mean, granted, I guess you could have a deck of like 52 lucky cards and then this could be useful, but this is reliant on getting additive 0.2 mult every time a lucky card successfully triggers, which is not very often. You need a lot of lucky cards for this to work, or again, the odds in your favor, and it's just that's too reliant, in my opinion, on other cards. And I honestly rather have some additive mult over even touching Lucky Cat. Baseball card is in the double S tier, one of the best in the game. If you have a bunch of uncommon Jokers, it's an instant grab. It's fantastic. You're timesing 1.5 mult for usually 3 to 5 or 6 other Jokers depending on your negative. It's a wonderful Joker to have. I'm actually going to put in very good. I think these are slightly a tier above, but still, baseball card Joker's a very, very good one, and you're buying it pretty much every time you see it in the shop. Bull is average. If you're playing an economy run and you have lots of money, why not add it? Why not get, let's say 264 chips? It can be really, really good, but it's usually reliant, again, on you having an insane economy, and by then, you're probably fishing for these super elite level Jokers, not Bulls, so that's why I don't put it any higher than average. Diet Cola, very good S tier. I think it's very underutilized. If you have a Joker spot, why not buy and sell Diet Cola to have a double tag for $3 to $5, depending on what vouchers you have and all that. It's just really good. A double tag can be extremely useful if you come across a tag that is helpful, or the best case scenario, a negative tag where you can have negative Jokers in the shop. Double tags come in handy, and you don't need to carry this or anything. You can buy and sell it right away. You can buy it and hold it for a little bit and sell it, but all in all, it's just a good joker. There's not really a downside to having it pop up in your shop unless it's just taking up space. Trading card joker, good tier. It's a card that allows me to destroy cards. It also adds economy. All in all, very, very solid. I usually, when playing with it, there comes a time where I have to get rid of it, and that's why I wouldn't put it in very good, because I feel like all of these cards can basically stay for the entire game. However, it has a time and the place. It's borderline very good. I'm going to put it in good for now. I'll think about it. Flash card. This is one of the jokers that I haven't played around too much. I don't think is extraordinarily useful, but I'm going to put in average. It's very similar to Fortune Teller, where I can see use cases where you've already re-rolled plenty of times and you can just add a quick 50 mult to the front of your joker stack in the late or mid game. It doesn't need you to purposefully go after it all game. Let's say like a runner, for example. I know this isn't apples to apples because this is chips, but it's like you have to really focus on runner. This one you could accidentally have it really high, just buy it for a couple rounds and whatnot. Popcorn, very good tier. I know people think popcorn sucks now because it does -4, but it can save your butt early in a game. And when you're playing higher stakes, the amount of times I like shed a tear when I see popcorn, I'm like, oh my god, thank god I'm going to survive Ante 2, and I have a few more shops now to hopefully progress in this higher stakes game. It's a very good early game joker, probably one of the best. I overrated it a little bit. It's not very good. It's good tier. Maybe it's even above average. I just went on that little rant. I thought it was beautiful, and now I'm going to put it above average. But still, my point stands. Put respect on its name. It's a good joker. On to pants. Sorry for the weird edit. I had to adjust the screen as there's too many jokers on it. Pants, I'm going to put in the average tier. I'm between that and below average. You guys know how I feel about out of mult jokers that you have to scale. I don't love it. It has a time and a place. It's fun to play, especially in a full house build, but eventually you're going to get rid of it for other jokers, and the fact is it's probably not helping you out that much in the early game because, again, you have to build it, and it only builds after you get it. It's not like, oh, I played 52 pairs, I can now grab it and have plus 100 mult. No, you now have to start scaling now, which is really annoying in my opinion. Actually, I'm going to put in bad tier. I'm sticking to my guns. I don't think it's that good of a joker. Next, we move on to Ancient. Times 1.5 mult for each card played of a specific suit. This is pretty solid, especially with a checkered deck or something that, or basically a deck that you have built to hyper-specific target certain suits, because it will adjust. I think it picks randomly based off of how many cards you have of each suit. So if I had 30 spades and only one heart left, it's going to pick spades 30 out of 31 times. I believe so. Do not quote me on that, but that's how I think it plays. Ramen, because it's an X-Mult Joker, I want to put it above average, but it's average. It is one of the worst X-Mult Jokers because it's ×2, and it's ×2 for a very short amount of time. Again, most builds you need to discard, and the few builds that you don't need to discard, you probably have better Jokers than Robin. Moving on, 10-4, Walkie Talkie, above average. It is a very solid additive Mult Joker, similar to Scholar, just a little bit slightly worse because this one gives you more chips. However, this does cover 2 separate cards, so it allows for really fun full house builds with 10 and 4. I have used it a bunch in my different difficulty gameplays. I am very appreciative of Walkie Talkie for that. Seltzer would be double S tier, but it is going to go in very good. It is extremely solid to get to help you finish out higher stakes runs. It is one of the greatest jokers to get to go after high scores. It's a fantastic joker all around. The only downside is you only get 10 uses out of it, so it doesn't really work super well if you get it in the early game, but it does retrigger all cards that you played for 10 hands no matter what. So it's extremely powerful. It's a very good joker. Castle is another good joker. It's a chip joker that actually scales pretty darn well because it's easy to discard certain suits. And again, if you're playing checkered deck, it's only going to say spades and hearts. It's fantastic with that deck, or it's fantastic for a deck that you've started to modify to go after certain suits. But all in all, it's not hard to build on. It works pretty well with Smeared Joker as well. It's a really good joker. Smiley Face, get +4 mult for every scored face card. It's similar to the suit jokers in my opinion. It has the same exact use case. It's good for early game, somewhat okay for mid game. Pretty solid joker. Campfire is going in the good tier. It's a little bit below very good. It's an X-Molt joker that's pretty easy to build X-Molt on, but it is required of you to sell things. So you need an economy to buy and sell a bunch of tarot cards or planet cards in the shop to build it up each and every single round. So that can get a little bit annoying. Gold ticket works okay with Midas, but I think it's a pretty average joker. Yes, I would love to get $3 every time I play my gold cards, but it's taking up a whole joker spot just to do something very hyper specific if I happen to have gold joker or gold playing cards. Not bad, but it's definitely not good. I think it's borderline below average. You know what? Throw it in below average. I just think the use case for it is very, very low. Mr. Bones, I rarely ever want to waste a joker spot on Mr. Bones. I wouldn't say it's the worst thing ever, and it can save a run, but it's rare that Mr. Bones saves the run and then you can continue on and win. That's really only for, let's say, the final ante and the final boss. I don't see many use cases for it. Acrobat is a pretty solid X-Molt joker. It goes in the good tier. It only works once per round because it only triggers on the final hand of that round. So that's the downside, is you're getting only 1 times 3 out of this entire joker. But it can absolutely save you, and you can play around this in Dusk, and you can play around, okay, I have one hand that's going to score tons of points anyway. I'll just make sure it's the final hand of the round, which that doesn't play very well with Seltzer, by the way, but it's a pretty solid joker. Sock and Buskin is very close to double S tier, but we'll put it in very good tier. We'll put it in double S tier. If you're going to put Hacker, you gotta put Sock and Buskin. Retriggers all face cards. Talk about something that works really well with Pareidolia, especially if you have Pareidolia, Hack, and Sock and Buskin, and then you have 3s. All of a sudden, these retrigger on both of them. So, again, name of the game, retriggering cards can absolutely blow up a run in a good way, and really helps when you have those glass cards or you have these cards that are triggering like Fibonacci. Swashbuckler, below average. Very specific use cases that we've already talked about, like if you have the egg, or maybe you used the gift joker to raise the value of everything. But in general, you have to place it all the way to the right, which is also bad, because if you're adding molt, you want it on the left, because you want to add all your molt before you times it. So Swashbuckler is really effective on the right side, but I've already times all my molt. So I times it all the way up to 194, and now I'm plussing 17. Well, if I plus that 17 in the beginning, I would be at like 300, 400 molt, but you can't do that with Swashbuckler, so it's not very useful. Moving on to Troubadour. Very good joker. The +2 hand size comes in clutch. Yes, I don't love having -1 hand per round, but the +2 hand size allows you to really utilize Baron, really utilize your steel cards, and make sure that you get the hand that you need to win your game out. It's tough to use a joker spot on it, but I find when you're able to really figure it out and start using Troubadour, it's turned into one of my favorite jokers in the game. Certificate, we'll put it in above average. I think it's similar to Marble. Anything that's creating cards in my deck, I say is a good card, but it's not quite it's not quite good. It's above average. It scales well with Hologram. I love adding those little sealed cards, but the fact that they're so random, and you don't want to use it for something like Checker deck or Abandoned deck where you already have specific cards and you don't want your thing to get any bigger. It's above average. It's useful, but it's not great in every single scenario. Smeared Joker, average. It's a utility card that can be used well with some of these other jokers that we talked about, but at the end of the day, it is a utility joker that you're going to have to use a joker spot on. It's just hard to afford the availability to do so at higher stakes, or if you're going for high scores. So if you're playing on white stake difficulty and you're going for fun, Smeared Joker, absolutely, but other than that, find it hard to use. Throwback Joker is going in the very good tier. I find skipping to be a very viable strategy, especially at higher stakes, or even if you're going for a high score. And Throwback Joker is going to basically accomplish what you need done by giving you X-Molt for skipping. So, you get this up to ×3, ×4, you're in a really, really good spot. And the fact that you didn't even have to play anything to help accumulate this molt in a way by allowing yourself to skip, just get the tags and play the boss blind, It's really good. All in all, I love Throwback Joker. All right, Hanging Chad. This is going to go in the average. I do like cards that allow me to re-trigger, but the fact that it's only re-triggering one card, and it's the first card, so it's probably not the glass card, because you want the glass card to be last after all the additive mult, you times the mult, as we've talked about, allows it to not be very good. In fact, it's below average. Actually can be useful in the early game to save a run if you do have a glass card and you can times 2 right in the beginning, or maybe you have, Scholar, and you have an ace that has some enhancement and, can help save a run. But other than saving a run, and it's kind of a last-ditch effort to scratch the points you need to make it one more shop, I don't really love it as a card. Now we're getting into the other suit-specific cards. Rough Gem, I'm going to put in average. I think it has its time and place in the early game to help your economy going, but it is very specific on you playing a diamond build, which I don't find many people doing. The fact is, it's only adding $1. It's not doing anything to improve your score. Arrowhead Joker is very good. Like I said, chips don't get talked about enough in terms of higher stake difficulties and high scores. Chips are very, very important. The fact that you can play a spade build and you have your chips taken care of by Arrowhead as a card allows me to play spade builds much more often. Onyx is next up, and I'm going to say it's in the above average here. Honestly, it's not that different to Wrathful Joker. The fact is, you're just getting 8 mult instead of 4 mult for those club cards. It's solid, it's good, but it's not the end-all be-all of cards. And it really is something that you probably don't need by the time you get it. Bloodstone, I'm going to put in the good tier. You probably want to be running Bloodstone with the Dice Joker that allows for better, better probability. But if you use this with something that re-triggers, like a hack, or a Sock and Buskin, or what have you, once you run 5 hearts through and you get to run them again, this 1 in 3 becomes pretty probable, and you're getting quite a few times too. So it's a little RNG, a little luck-based, but it's really, really solid in my opinion. It is a tier below Arrowhead, which is just solid, giving you chips, 50 chips every single time, but it can be very, very good in the game. Glass Joker, I'm partial. I think Glass Joker is fantastic because I love playing with glass cards, and the fact is that it gives you 0.5 mult every time a glass breaks. This is kind of reassurance to playing a glass build. I've found myself at higher stakes doing a couple of glass builds where you're building glass cards relatively early and you're like, oh crap, these are going to break. But if you grab Glass Joker in those builds, beautiful, you're covered because it's going to scale when you get hurt by those glasses breaking. It can also be pretty fun to use in high score builds where you've been playing a lot of glass and it's been breaking and it gets up to 4 or 5 times pretty quickly. I wouldn't say it's elite, but it's pretty solid and in the good tier. Again, anything that's multiplying mult is going to be a solid card, mostly speaking. Showman, one of the worst jokers in the game. Yes, it allows cards to appear multiple times. It would be wonderful if I opened up a tarot pack and saw 5 death cards. That'd be incredible. Except I can also open up a tarot pack and get 5 world cards, and I'm playing a heart build. If it allowed me to somehow direct it to play certain cards multiple times in my packs, that would be great. But the matter of fact is it doesn't. It's kind of a vanity card. It's fun, maybe, to do some fun builds with. It's not going to help you out. It's a bad joker. Do not waste a joker spot with it. Flower Pot is going in above average. It's not the easiest to play around. The fact that you have to play one of every single suit. But if you have wilds, you have smeared, you have these certain things, you can play around it decently okay. But it's definitely not the easiest times mult joker to play. The fact is you are getting times 3. If you can figure out a way to make it work, it's a really, really good joker. But it's not something like Cavendish in this double S tier, which is just going to straight up give you times 3. Blueprint Joker, double S tier, you're able to copy the ability of another Joker, and you get to shift it mid-round. So for the first card, I can copy DNA and get 2 copies now. Then I can copy Hologram for when I actually play my hand. So yeah, it doesn't get much better than Blueprint Joker. And while we're at it, I'm going to just skip ahead and put Brainstorm, which is very similar to Blueprint Joker, up here in double S tier. It's another Joker that allows you to copy abilities. Wee Joker, I am very partial to. I am putting in the good tier. Yes, it only scales when you're playing a 2 build. But if you can get this early, the fact that it scales at plus 8 chips when a play 2 is scored, this thing scales fast at plus 8 chips. You can get to plus 400 before the final ante with ease. It is a very good scaling chip joker in my opinion. Mary Andy, another good tier joker. The fact that it's uncommon and can be used by baseball card joker and actually has a very good use case in plus 3 discard but minus 1 hand size. I know I've talked about hand size. You know, I have Turtle Joker up here. I have Troubadour up here because hand size is very important. But I am often okay with taking the trade-off of 3 more discards from minus 1 hand size. It allows you to fish for those specific jokers or specific cards that you want, and it also really allows you to play blackboard very well. This is a good combination because smaller hand size means less likelihood of hearts and diamonds, and then you can fish for your clubs and spades. Oops All Sixes is a good tier joker. I've talked about so many jokers here that would play better if Oops All Sixes was around, and here it is. If you have this and you have one of those other jokers, have fun. It's going to be a really fun game. The only downside is glass cards break more, so it is all probabilities, not just probabilities of positive effects that get doubled. So remember that. The Idol. This is going to be above average. It's a good card. If you have made your deck all 2 of hearts, then it's S tier. The thing is, it's not easy to make your deck all 2 of hearts. ×2 mult for specific cards, again, is a fantastic thing, but it requires a lot of refinement of your deck to become useful, and that's why it's going to go in the above average, similar to a Flower Pot Joker. Seeing Double, I'm going to put in the good tier. It's very easy to play around, in my opinion. It gives you ×2 mult, basically, if you have a club card and you have something else. It's almost similar to the Duo, which we're going to get to in a second, but ×2 mult is really solid. Matador, earn $8 if the boss blind is triggered. This is below average. It only is going to give you money on boss blinds. It's only giving you $8, which is okay, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. Also, you're not always going to trigger the boss blind. It's hard to waste a joker spot on it, in my opinion. Hit the Road Jack, I think in the demo was very good. I think right now it's above average. It's hard to build a deck where you have enough jacks that you then could discard those jacks but still get the hand you want. Like, it's not the easiest thing to play around, and the fact that it resets every single round makes it even harder to play around. It has to, the way it's built. Like, obviously I'm not suggesting it should reset every ante or something like that, but it's hard, and I much rather have the Campfire Joker, for example. It's much easier to control that with the shop and whatnot. The Duo, good tier, ×2 for pairs is fantastic. The Trio, very good tier, ×3 for 3 of a kind is amazing. And then we're going to put the Family all the way up in very good as well. ×4 is incredible for those 4 of a kind. So if you're going for a hyper specific build, it's it's not too difficult to play around. I have mentioned how straight decks are not easy to play. The order is going to be an above average. It is a ×3 mult card. If you are playing a straight build, it's an absolute must, but like I mentioned, it's not easy to play a straight build. The Tribe, ×2 for flushes. It's the same thing as Duo, in my opinion. Gives you very similar benefit in a very similar way. Stuntman, very good. Stuntman is a card that does very well for high card builds. If you get Stuntman or you double Stuntman and you get 600 chips, yes, your hand size is very small. But the thing is, a high card build doesn't matter. You just play those high cards. So I've been open to the idea of how Stuntman can just win a run. And I've won a couple of high stakes difficulties that I was stuck on because I just got a Stuntman, got a couple of other jokers that work well with high cards, and I just played a high card all the way through. Didn't even have to think. It can work really, really well. Invisible Joker, very good. If it allowed you to pick which Joker you're copying, I would say it's double S tier, but right now it's just S tier. If you get it late game in the right spot and you have 4 other good Jokers, it doesn't matter, but oftentimes those conditions aren't perfect and you could end up with a Joker you do not wish. You could always sell the Jokers you don't want to double, but then sometimes you're in a spot where, oh, I can't really afford to sell this Joker. I need all of them, but I really want to double this specific one. It's right on the edge of double S tier, but I think it's just S tier, very good. Satellite, gain $1 at the end of round for every unique planet card you use this run. I think goes in the good tier. It's a good economy Joker. Not great. It's pretty easy to play different kinds of planet cards, so you can build your economy rather quickly. Shoot the Moon is going to go in above average. Plus 13 mult is fantastic. Having queens in your hand isn't necessarily the easiest thing, and obviously I'd much rather have Baron timesing mult in my hand with kings, but it's solid and can help on certain and specific runs. Driver's license, very good, S tier, ×3 in a pretty manageable manner of having 16 enhanced cards. It's not too crazy to get 16 enhanced cards, and you can get enhanced cards in a manner of ways, and one of the easiest actually is like standard packs, because those standard packs often will give you a choice of cards, and a couple of them are going to be enhanced, and you can select the best one for you. Cartomancer is going to go in the below average. I much rather have Vagabond making 4 or 5 per round versus Cartomancer making 1 tarot card per round, so that's it. Astronomer is in the A tier, very good. Having all my planet stuff be free is fantastic, and obviously works very well with Constellation, but it's not quite useful enough for me to put in very good, because it is a Joker that at the same time of doing all that is also not helping your score at all. The way it's really helping your score is allowing you to have so many planet cards. It can work very well in tandem with certain vouchers like the telescope voucher, so there is that. Burnt Joker, above average. Being able to discard a certain hand type and increase the level of it is good, but I find myself not always being able to do it. So it's really a card that's better reserved for if you're playing maybe a full house build, but probably a flush build or a high card build, or pair 2 pair maybe, and gain those levels up. Also, it only allows you to do it once per round with that first discard, so there's only so much it can scale. Bootstraps, plus 2 mult for every $5 you have. This is similar to Bull in a way, but I'm just going to put in average because it's the same. If I have that much money, I can probably just afford to fish for better Jokers. Now we're on to legendaries. Kano gains ×1 mult with each face card that's destroyed. Very good. It's not that hard to destroy face cards. Tribulette, giving you ×2 for kings and queens, is double S tier. Fantastic. I mean, you're basically getting glass cards without having to make them glass, or you can make them glass, and now you get ×2 and ×2. York is going to go in the good, very good tier. ×5 is amazing, but the fact that I need to discard 23 times, sometimes I'm not able to use them if you get them in, ante 7 or 8. Super hot take. Chakot is only in above average. Disabling the boss blind is really good, and boss blinds often can kill a run. But you know what? It's not really worth a Joker spot, in my opinion. Whether I'm going for high scores or I'm going to just win the game, I usually want to get some mult over just disabling the boss blind. I'm being a little hard on it. I will put in good tier, but not my favorite legendary Joker. And then there's Perko. Best Joker in the game, allows for infinite runs, can basically score you trillions, quadrillions, Google points. It's incredible. It is incredible to get a negative copy of a consumable card, and if it's cryptid, that's how you create that infinite run, and I'll probably have a whole video at some point about infinite runs. So there we go. That is my final Joker tier list. I'm out of breath. That was a very long video. Thank you for 100 subscribers. I'm just going to look at it. I'm not going to go through all of these for you. Please take a look at it. Freeze the frame. Comment down below how your tier list would look. I'm going to put the template in the description. You can go ahead and make your own tier list. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for 100 subscribers. Hit the like button if you like this one. Dislike if you didn't. Comment down below what your tier list would look like. And hit subscribe if you've been enjoying the content. We'll see you for your next one very soon.